Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st of August, and again, we talked about this as we came right up against, well, in this case, it was the 29.32, but we had talked about the level being right around that 23 range, which we had previously encountered before, which was right about there where we had just were opening up to, and wasn't hard when we came right up against the 32 again. Boom, hit it exactly, well, within one tick of the 61% we have, and rejected off of it, and then just started fading from there. It made a bounce back in between, but as the day went on, it continued. So that cyan rising, shorts rising came in through there early enough, and we saw it happen the previous day, and then once the short-term buyers here in steel faded a bit, that was enough to bring down. Now it's still within a buy, so if we could get a spider turnaround with orange starting to rise. We'll see. Shakeout's still rising in this particular case, and what this really is doing is just kind of instantly filling that positive extreme right back. So we'll see if the weakness is able to maintain itself. It certainly expressed itself from well, we can look at the 50K right now, why not? Because the 50K could see it happening as well. Things were pretty strong here. We had the well over plus 15, but we knew we were DOC red over plus 13. It just doesn't usually sustain itself. The question is, how much of a retrace do you get? In this particular case, we refilled the positive extremes from a 50K standpoint, which would take us to 92. We're currently at 98, so a little bit more room. That does, however, as we talked about in the video before, would give us new equity highs. So boom, it continues to push us all the way through there with a monster for this year. And still quite a ways to go. Brings that profit factor up to 1.34 and 789 for its aggregate, which is a whole lot stronger than the daily does, but because it trades so much more. And like I said, we know that we have some of these bad configurations that come through, and I'm very close to finalizing those details on changing that code that will eliminate it. The problem is sometimes you eliminate these and it just moves it over for a new buy, and so that's what I've been fighting with on it. So I'm able to eliminate it, but all it does sometimes it just shifts it over. What I'm trying to create are the new base configurations when you don't have a DOC reset of steel coming back below red, and what the criteria for those setups are. So it's a little bit of back and forth play with that. Likewise, when you have cyan under red here and you get the movement of the DOC red, it's not until it crests above that red there and then resets coming back, in this case right below, would give it a full reset capability at this particular point, but in this case it's got to have that orange come back below for it to give it any support going through there. NASDAQ almost identical, slightly stronger though, because it stayed above the 50 and was just a little bit cleaner. And we've seen that now for the last week or so plus. Of course, Euro, they're doing their best to hold on to this, because you just had the Italian government, let's not say collapse, but the resignation of the PM means that they're going to have to create some type of new coalition in the next period of weeks. We know that Salvini's goal, though, has always been to have new elections, since they did so well in the EU elections, and so this is that split, that rift that Donald Trump is trying to exploit for the European Union, to break them up, to make the U.S. Just that much stronger as competitive. And right now, that's what you've got in the world scene, is the U.S. economy still doing well, and the rest of the world is really struggling quite a bit. So this goal of getting the Fed to lower rates, while it makes sense, the tariffs have caused some inflationary pressures to build, which that's exactly what they do, because you're no longer getting cheap goods subsidized, and you got to pay for that. So oil, though, is saying that, hey, there's still enough demand that it's not falling apart. Gold, like I said, is still going to continue this. We just expect it to be a small reset within that. Brief bounce. no objections to where that's at this particular point. So we can see it from our intraday. We had that pump came up, made the high peak, and that was about it for it, because after that we kind of settled down. Right here was around the 25, but we got closer to that 24, 23, and then boom, we had the dip. No reset. Now you can have a no reset, but you can get by configurations when you have the steel move above 13.5 and the orange dip where green is already crossed, but you've got to have the shakeout having yellow crossed with enough space. Didn't happen over here. It was less than a point, which is why it stayed red, and then it turns green there. Now, in this configuration, though, this is something to look at if you trade short term. When you have steel falling, you literally can wait for your first uptick of steel to make that buy-in purchase, because often when this is fading down at the beginning downturns, you're usually going to see a little bit of weakness. You can often get much better price when you get that signal. Just throw that out there for you. I mark it here so that you can see what the identification is, but when you see that coming down, that's usually critical. What you want to look for is that first pop-up, and particularly if it dips below the 7.5, because that gives you more room for turnaround coming up. And then, of course, what you're ideally looking for is the green to cross over cyan, which it does right over here. Not too much of a price difference from where that ends up taking place, and then it shoots up from there. But once it got to that peak, we had our magenta slightly above 15, so it took a little longer before you had that breakdown, because you're not going to get the magenta candle until it goes below it, even if you get a DOC spread before there. And at that point, we had the slight dip, and again, the green crossed above the cyan just for a bar, so immediate spider on that particular case. And then when there was the full separation, boom, you had that clear signal and faded from there. And this is another one that I'll probably be adding into it for next month's indicators. When we get this meeting between that green cyan and the rejection, when the cyan comes back up, you're likely to suggest that those initial buy configurations with that are going to be weak, and it's going to fade, and that's exactly what happened. At that particular point, you're looking for pops to come from just steel moving higher, or a break higher of your DOC red, in which case that happened over here on the pivots, but I'm really leaning towards potentially just leaving these to stay red for the broader trend. Because if I don't have that green follow through, I'm not likely to break past my 38%. So I'm really leaning towards just leaving that as a broader red trend, particularly for those that like to have a nice short run that may be interrupted with just a patch of flatness, which just would be consolidation before another breakdown. It's easier here when you're having a complete breakdown of magenta and it's just nice and clean. This would still be considered within the short confines, because you know you don't have that steel reset, and you certainly didn't get the green crossover, which is certainly going to be necessary. You're only going to get pops when steel comes over, and if you want to wait until the steel crosses back below, you can certainly wait for that, but you know that you're already within a weakness. So in this particular case, that 23% was good, because it puts you above the signal coming in right at the algo, so you're slightly ahead of that. So if there is any support or change in readings, you're not at the algo resistance point. So just a thought, throw that one out there for you. As always, though, I will keep updating it and put anything new and relevant up on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.